Images of success are less than informative. What I mean by that statement is this. It's easy to envy a person who seems to have it all in terms of wealth and reputation. What we so often don't see is how far the person came to have this success. For some, their socioeconomic background allowed them to arrive at or cultivate this image quickly. I'm not saying they didn't work for it, or even that they didn't work hard for it. They simply had a stronger tailwind, a head start, a leg up. You choose the metaphor. The point is that they had advantages. And then, of course, there are those with a notable lack of advantages, as well as everyone in between. I'm not sure what Professor Jeff Willie, a life and leadership coach, would say to this. Sure, his home growing up lacked many of the modern conveniences that we take for granted, but talking with him leaves you with a different feeling. From his humble surroundings, he learned emotional intelligence, saw dynamic examples of servant leadership, and cultivated a titanium strength work ethic that sustained him for 26 years in the Air Force and inspired him to complete multiple advanced college degrees. In one sense, you can see how far he's come, but in another sense, you see how his upbringing, particularly the example of his emotionally intelligent father, allowed him to take these soft skills and leverage them to amazing effect. Anabasis is the ancient Greek term for the inward journey or the ascent. And in this episode, I'm so glad to be journeying into the coaching world with Professor Jeff Willie, where we'll talk coaching, leadership, education. Heck, we seem to have covered it all, though I've narrowed it down to the best 20 minutes. I hope you enjoy.
Life and leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership, and leadership is life. You cannot separate the two. Some people try to separate the two and try to pull them apart, but if you're leading an effective life, you're leading yourself, because the most difficult person to lead is the person that's looking at you in the mirror. Little part of my historical perspective. Of course, raised in East Texas, which is east of Dallas. If you meet with the DFW area, it's east of Dallas, about 160 miles south east of Dallas, in a small area of Pinellas County. Raised there with a father and a mother, two parents in the home, and raised with 6 boys and 6 girls. I'm number 10 out of the 12, but in the natural birth order, I'm number 11 out of 15, because I lost a brother and I lost 2 sisters. Soon my brother Al passed away several months after being born, and my sister Irma passed away. They was after me after being born, and then there was a sister that was born before me, and she passed away as well. So my parents raised 6 boys and 6 girls. That was the, as we say, the Willie dozen. You got that big dozen, absolutely. But in midst of all of that in the home, it was 4 rooms. I make sure I clarify that. I didn't say 4 bedrooms. That seems a lot. If I said 4 bedrooms, that means you got to have, but I said 4 rooms, and that was it. But the amenities of that house: no electricity, no running water, no TV, no telephone, no automobile. My father could not read or write. He signed my birth certificate with an X. We were sharecroppers. So as a little boy, I even plowed with a mule. So that's part of my historical background. That's part of my grounding and my rooted. But out of that came some significant work ethics, values, relationships, family, all those different foundational things came out of that. Then one of the things that was lacking out of that was what I call embracing those soft skills of communication, because the focus was raised, go to work, go to work, go to work, go to work. That was it. So school education was not a foundational principle. It was I'm raising you to go work on the farm. I'm raising you to take care of these hogs. I'm raising you to take care of this garden. Now, my mother, more or less, she said, you got to go to school. Of course, the state of Texas required everyone to go to school, but it didn't require you stay there. You just show up. And so that was
big difference, right?
That's it. That was the big difference. But the combination of that, because that school system that I was raised on initially was segregated schools. Whites and blacks did not integrate until 1971 in my school district. And so my first year of integration was 1970-71 school year in Carthage Independent School District. So that was a unique challenge. Now we are actually going to school with different races of people, and we embracing that. But the part of that, the foundation principle of that comes out of that my father had emotional intelligence, the EQ aspect versus the IQ, the academic. So he navigated his world, served in World War II, all through those EQ principles and learning to connect relationships and understanding wisdom, knowledge, how to navigate the world, having those EQ principles and that strength of that. And so that strength was definitely embedded into me, because out of those 12 children, Michael, only 6 of us graduated high school. But guess what I said? Graduated high school, glass half full. Of course, I didn't say it the other way. You probably caught that. I didn't say it the other way. So they always share that perspective. The glass is half full. And I share that with my educators when they talk about, can kids learn? Yes, they can. What's their perspective? What are your expectations? Because they will reach your expectations if you plant that seed into them. They will arise to that. Or the other opposite of that, they will fail to your expectations based on that as well. So watching my father and way he managed himself and way he navigated his world, smile, kind, polite, respectful, look at people, talk to people, treat people better than you want to be treated. All those different emotional skills, emotional intelligence skills. And he navigated his world and he passed it on to his children, especially me. I'm the youngest son, so I got a chance to be around him even closer, because as he was aging, I'm the boy at home. The rest of the older siblings now have already moved out of the home, and I'm the boy at home. It's kind of watching my dad, learning to drive and drive my dad, because my dad never drove a car his entire life. He never drove a car, never knew how to drive a car. But now his youngest boy is navigating him. Once we eventually got a car and got electricity after we moved out of the woods, we was able to purchase a car. Not very much, a 59 Chevrolet back in the 70s. So you could imagine what that looked like back in the 70s, called a Batmobile, if you know what a 59 Chevrolet looks like. And so those become our foundations. And I look at that and I navigate that and I reflect back on that. Those are the guiding lights that guide me today. Those are the values that guide me today. When my father did not have an education, and when I saw my birth certificate when I was 19 years of age, entering the Air Force for the first time, seeing my birth certificate, I did not know my father could not read and write, because if I asked him to read something at home, my homework or whatever, his response was, son, you need to know how to read. You read this out loud. And so all I'm doing is responding to the orders that my dad is giving me, and what he's doing, he's compensating for his lack of illiteracy. And I did not, as a teenager, you don't have the emotional acuities to understand that. You just do what dad asks you to do. And okay. And but yeah, that's the foundational principle for where I am today. And then what I do today is because of that. What I do today is my why, because that's why I work with educators. It's important that educators have high expectations for their students. They must model that, and they also must speak that into their youth that they're teaching. Let them know that you can, because we get inundated in our world with I can't, you can't, you're never going to amount to nothing. But as a voice from an educator who you spend majority of your time with, and especially in the public school system, you have to model the high expectations, and the students will rise to that. You build relationships. It's not about the academic achievement gap and whether they can or cannot. It's that you establish a relationship with them, and guess what? They will start migrating toward high academic achievement. You start reducing the academic achievement gap through relationship. As we say, I say always have Maslow before Bloom's. always familiar with Maslow's about the hierarchy of needs and about self-actualization. It's about relationships, self-identification, meeting the needs of the students. Of course, Bloom taxonomy is all about what curriculum structure. But if you put the taxonomy before the relationship, the kids will never rise to level expectations.
That's powerful, because I've used Bloom's taxonomy
Mhm.
every time I've gone to make lesson plans. That's what I'm using. Can I ask a question though about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Because, and
Mhm.
I think it's related. I noticed in the way that you talk about your father, in the way that you talk about, putting these relationships, before curriculum. I also noticed that on your website, you stress the leaders are servants message
Absolutely.
in your leadership philosophy. Is your father the one who modeled this for you, or did you have other people who modeled it for you?
I had others. Obviously, the first real model is the dad model. Absolutely, absolutely serving his family. You have to be you're a father. You have to serve and model the things in front of your children because they don't do what you say; they do what you do, and your nonverbal and your verbal have to sync. There have to be the congruency there. And so my father was very soft-spoken, very mild-mannered, but he modeled the expectations as serving our family and doing what he had to do to make sure that his children and their needs was taken care of. Whether he was working in the fields all day and then working for another person on the weekend, so that's what he did. He modeled the sense of neatness, even though we lived in the woods. We literally lived in the woods, Michael. I can't even begin to tell you how we were in the woods because we could wake up and there would be foxes in the chicken coop stealing our eggs and eating our chickens, and there would be snakes and there would be all those different animals in that you would normally associate with the woods. We would see them around our house. They would be in the hog pen. We would raise hogs in the back, and there would be foxes in the hog pens eating all the baby pigs. And we have to wake my father up in the middle of the night, and he would go out and he'd get the necessary weaponry and whatever he needs to do to run off those animals. And then, of course, if my father's awake, guess who else is awake? Oh,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. We was done what we need to do. 4 a.m. in the morning time, I was up feeding hogs before I would get on the bus to go to school, and because we have to make sure that we took care of that, we were getting the eggs out of the chicken coop, all those different things before we even got on the bus, before we even had breakfast, because mom would get up and we would actually have. And now think about this: your breakfast would be eggs. Our breakfast would be rice and sometimes baked chicken or fried chicken or smoked chicken, because there would be a healthy enough breakfast to keep us through the day, because there's no money for lunch and there's no lunch. There's no lunch at the school that provide for you. So you have to have a strong breakfast just to get through the day to 4 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you get back on that bus to come home. And that's why that was part of their philosophy, to make sure you eat well, eat the veggies. And the meat was chicken and hogs. And primarily my father would hunt for squirrels and rabbits and armadillos and possum and raccoons. What I'm saying, if it moved, we probably ate it.
Oh gosh.
So he modeled that. He modeled that, and there were some educators in my life that also modeled that as well. Modeled being servants and taking care of folks. And then, of course, now you see the models, and I gravitate towards the ones that what I call the real models, because there are role models out there that people gravitate to that are not real. They are distracted. They are negative. So I always try to can the phrase: Are you a role model? Are you a real role model? And so sometimes I even leave out the role model and say, are you a real model? Because there are a lot of role models and they're not always positive, and there are some that are negative. So I always make sure that I help my educators understand that, are you a real model? Because you are a role model, whether you choose to be or not, but are you real?
What is your area of expertise, your focus?
It's life and leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership, and leadership is life. You cannot separate the two. Some people try to separate the two and try to pull them apart. But if you're leading an effective life, you're leading yourself, because the most difficult person to lead is the person that's looking at you in the mirror. And you have to learn to lead yourself. And that is those self-care, and that is those life principles, that you're doing the right thing and being proactive and taking care of yourself. because I can tell as a person that's working with you or surrounded with you in your sphere, whether you're being authentic or not, whether you're being real, whether you're being transparent, whether you're a great listener. And you have to embody that through your own self-development, self-care, and self-leadership. And so you can't separate the two. Some people try to do that when I'm working with my educators, when I'm working with my leaders, and when I'm working with my church leaders. All those things come together. Everything rises and falls on leadership, and leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, because my actions is influence. My actions are influence to others, not only to myself, but they're influence to you as well. What I say and what I do primarily got to sync, but that becomes influence. And people look at you in the grocery store, that's self-leadership. When people look at you at the gas station, they look at your response, they look at you taking care of the wait staff when they come bring your food, that's leadership. Those are life principles, and people are watching that. And whether they emulate, are they going to make an assumption or not? And those are indicators how well you lead yourself, how well you can manage your responses, how well you manage your anger, how well you manage your emotions. Are you leading yourself well? Because the way you do that, the way you lead yourself, which is life, is the way you're going to lead people in your workplace and your colleagues and people around you. You cannot separate the two. And I make it very sincere, very succinct. When I talk to my leaders, as I spoke to them on Tuesday, I did a workshop for about 45 leaders on Tuesday. I said, people don't leave an organization, they leave the leader. Why? Because you're not modeling the expectations, you're not serving, you're not meeting their needs, you're not taking care of them, because leadership is about relationship, is taking care of you and taking care of others. Because if you value you wholeheartedly and how you desire to be treated, you will value others and you would emulate the expected behavior. So you cannot separate the two. So I work with my church leaders because of the dysfunctional lack of leadership inside the church, because those leaders were not leading themselves well. And now they're trying to lead a church congregation that they was highly effective. It was, the church was not dysfunctional. The leadership was dysfunctional. And lack of knowledge, lack of willingness, lack of growth mindset, lack of desire to grow thyself, it's going to impact those around you significantly, and they are going to be affected by that. So life and leadership is all intertwined. And the same thing, those school leadership, as you know, I just shared my primary niche, which is church leaders and school leadership, because of that dysfunctional organization that I was exposed to. It wasn't the organization that those educators had low expectations of the students, and those pastors have low expectations of the parishioners. Why? Because they had low expectations of themselves.
You know, in light of what you just shared, you know, the people you're working with churches and organizations, what projects are on the forefront of your mind? What are the things that you're excited about right now about what you're doing?
I'm so glad that you asked. What am I excited about right now? I'm excited about every day, Mike. I'm excited about the fact that I am launching right now as we speak, been working on it very diligently, still working on it, be working on it this weekend, which is the online platform, online academy for 147 different online courses to help our leaders and help our people become the best version of themselves. One of my multiple mantras that I live by is one, especially for 2022, no excuses, inspire until you expire, serving and adding value to people. People are my business. The best gift that you and I can give our family, our friends, our community is the best version of ourselves. And how do we do that? We learn to lead ourselves. And then we're not talking about a technical skill to learn how to do a computer skill, but right now, because of the onset and the exacerbation of the pandemic, right now, people need soft skills. They need interpersonal skills. They need relationship skills. They need conflict management. They need stress management. They need anxiety. We got sexual harassment in the workplace. So I'm launching online academy as we speak. I was working with my web manager today. I was working with my LMS, which is a learning management system today. We had a call this morning, and I have all the YouTube video, putting the course curriculum in, putting the questions in, putting the assessments in, the summative, informative assessments in that for the online academy. So people can go there on demand and take a course without the pressure of sitting in a workshop and being being voluntold to be there. They can be there on their own demand, but they have to have a growth mindset to be willing to grow themselves. And there's a lack of right now to help our folks understand that organizations need those soft skills. We have telecommuting right now. We got people still working in a hybrid mode. And how do you build teams in a hybrid mode? How do you build teams in a telecommuting mode? How do you build teams of the folks that are working virtually? And because they need to feel connected to the team that's inside the building. How do you do that as a leader and a manager? And I've got courses to help you walk through that and coach you through that. It's a soft skills training, because that's what we need. We still need those technical skills. You still need to go there, but I cannot teach a will. I can teach you a skill, but you got to have a desire and a will, because one of my philosophies, when the student is ready, the teacher will show up, but you got to be ready. So I'm launching the learning management system right now. Shopify is going to be my e-commerce platform for that. Literally, as we speak, a couple of minutes ago, right before I got on the call with you, my web manager was giving me a good picture of the landing page that he has created for me to be able to do that. So hopefully by next week, as I get everything uploaded and get everything launched, but that's the focus of that: crisis management, stress management, conflict relationship, all those different things that we need to better ourselves. Workplace diversity, workplace harassment, workplace sexual assault in the workplace, all those things right now, emotional intelligence, how to deal with workplace anxiety, all those things has been exacerbated. They was already there, but they're well pronounced now because of the pandemic that we're going through and that we're living through. And so I'm hoping that our leaders and managers embrace people and hug them and let them know I am there for you to help you grow, because if I don't take care of you, you can't take care of my company. And my responsibility as a leader is to take care of you, because if I take care of you, you'll take care of the organization.
And where can people find this online academy?
Well, it's still in the process. Obviously, it's going to be on jeffwillie.com, which is my website. That's where it's going to be. Is not there yet. I do have some of the courses that are there. You can go there and find some online courses. Those are the courses that are there right now. They're a little bit more than what I'm offering, but they are there right now. But jeffwillie.com is my website. You can go there anytime you want to. You can reach out to me. You can book me to speak. As you probably can tell, I do a little talking, and I even help people how to learn how to craft their presentations and their speaking as well, because I'm a speech coach. Make sure that you're edifying and lifting. That's the focus of everything I try to do, is make sure I'm lifting myself, because as I'm lifting others, guess what? I'm lifting myself. So you just asked me off the cuff. That was not one of those questions. And then you allowed me to just be impromptu. You don't allow, let me tell you something, Michael, you don't allow Jeff Willie to be impromptu, because
Hey, I know you. I mean, you're throwing in scripture in there. I could imagine that if somebody gave you the pulpit, you'd take them up on it. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Any day of the week. Any day of the week.
Jeff Willie, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to let you go and honor your time. Thank you so much for talking with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Professor Jeff, for taking the time to talk with me. To learn more about Professor Jeff's company, go to Jeff Willie, that's WILLIE.com, where you can book him to speak or coach, or you can find his online courses. If you found this conversation beneficial, please subscribe to my podcast so you don't miss an episode. On September 21st, I'll drop the next one with Dennis Barry, an addiction recovery coach living far away in Moorea, French Polynesia. Thank you for listening.